Use it as a clue when everybody says it can't be done and you're crazy. Use that as a very strong clue that you're on the right path, because it's always the masses that have been wrong all throughout history.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, your guide to traveling, investing, and living beyond borders, where we talk about living the life that you want to live, where you want to live it. From beautiful San Miguel de Allende, smack in the middle of Mexico, with your hosts, Jonathan Lockwood and James Guzman.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders, where we talk about all of the things that it takes for you to live beyond your borders. My name is Jonathan Lockwood, here with James Guzman. Hey, James, what's happening?
Not a whole lot, just recovering from the New Year's celebrations here.
It's 2015.
Sure
it
is.
Seemed, to just explode onto the scene here in San Miguel de Allende.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's something that when I tell my friends back in the States about this awesome little town you and I both live in, it goes without saying that not only is it awesome for expats who live here, but this is a very special spot for Mexicans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place of great historical significance, and so they love to come here too, and the town just fills up for any conceivable excuse, certainly including the holidays,
Yeah, it's great, and we rented the restaurant over there, and it was kind of overlooking a great view, and had a band there, and it's just it's just great, and for the price of what you pay for something like that compared to having a similar experience anywhere in the States or any of these other countries would just be very expensive.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
By the way, a shout out to my new favorite place. You know where that is, right, James?
What is it?
Cervescal.
No, it's great too, actually. Yeah, I love it.
What's the guy's name who owns it?
Oh, man.
At some point we got to get him on this podcast. But
yeah, he's great.
This place specializes in cerveza, in good beer, the kind of stuff I like to drink.
That's right.
And they got a lot of different options. And mezcal, which is the other thing I like to drink here in Mexico. And it's a great little atmosphere. It's very open, very comfortable, and I like it there. So I'm going to be hanging out there more often.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
So today we have on the Borderless Podcast, Barry Solomon, who is co-founder of the popular website and YouTube channel DR Escapes. Barry stems from an interesting background, hosting several attention-grabbing careers. Barry's personal experiences include being an underwater photographer, owning a successful marine business in Western Canada, and conducting real estate transactions in 3 different countries. Perfect for the Borderless Podcast. His extensive travels have landed him in over 100 countries in just over 35 years, and he's actually lived in 6 of them. So it all starts back in 1982. Shortly after he began traveling, 1984, he was 26 years old. You do the math. He started realizing that the mathematics of most Western nations, to phrase it simply, was unsustainable. Perhaps what's still most valued to Barry is his understanding of trends. Barry's nearly 3 decades of focusing on trends has enabled him to place his family in perhaps one of the most sustainable areas of the Northern Hemisphere, which to him is the farming regions of the north coast of the Dominican Republic. So, Barry Solomon, welcome to the Borderless Podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Barry, can you try to take us back? You started traveling in 1982. Why did you do that?
Well, at a young age, I found out I was totally untrainable, and I didn't really conform to the status quo. And I loved different countries, and I just needed to formulate ways of making livings in different countries. And I started working at a dive shop after school, lugging tanks for the students. And when I was 16, I was able to get my initial diving license, and then I took courses in marine mechanics and became quite a good marine technician. So I wanted to attain skills that I would be able to find useful in tropical climates surrounded by water.
Very good. All right. So that sounds healthy and normal and natural for an untrainable young man.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I've taken some different personality tests. You have several different types, and one of them was very in depth, and they judge you on all these different things. And one of them is trainability, and I was absolutely horrible on trainability. It was like out of 1 to 10, I scored like a 1. It was so.
Well, you know what? It's really funny because a couple of decades ago, that was what America was all about.
Yeah.
You were an individual. You were a thinker. now you're a nonconformist.
Exactly.
So
Right.
things do change.
So your travels started in 1982, but then something struck you in 1984. You're 26 years old. How did you come to the conclusion that you did at that time?
What happened was I looked at ways that, how am I going to make a living while trying to live this way of life? And I became quite good with an underwater camera, just from, believe it or not, practicing in the pool in Edmonton after the dive classes. And I started to put out my skills to other people and took on a couple of consignment jobs where they hired me and found out I was a lot less expensive than some of the top name photographers, yielding similar results. And from there, I expanded on putting companies' logos and everything on postcards with my photography on it, calendars, things of this nature. And I found out it was a sustainable means for me to keep traveling.
But there was something else that struck you about unsustainability regarding Western nations. What was that?
Well, simply the mathematics of it. Nations were writing checks that they can't cash. And that can only go on for so long. And in a general sense, I found even way back then, people starting to take the curve to living beyond their means. And to me, that's totally unsustainable. In other words, they want instant gratification. Drive around the corner. They want the hamburger with double pickles and hold the mustard and want to pick it up in 30 seconds. And they just lost the ability to understand making a game plan and working towards it. They wanted instant success, and that's just not going to work.
Okay, so individuals came off track as far as what was sustainable and reasonable, and you saw the same thing happening with the governments.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the very word government itself is two distinct Greek Latin words, gubernamentino and ment. And the first one means to control, and the second one means the mind. And they're doing a pretty good job of it. And I just feel that there are so many opportunities in situations like this. It's just the person who needs to have an open mind. There's tremendous opportunities right now. This is not a doom and gloom atmosphere.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to hear. So there are going to be people listening to the Borderless podcast who are in line with these thoughts and those who may not, who are ultimately just interested in moving around the world. They have an international mindset. They might want a location-independent business. And so where you landed was in the Dominican Republic. Why there?
Well, first of all, I'd like to state that there is no one size that fits all. And anybody that tries to portray to you that there is kind of selling you a bill of goods. But why this particular region of the country appealed to me first and foremost was the abundance of natural food and fresh drinkable water. And being a trends enthusiast, that was two of the most important things for my family. And I guess in traveling over 100 countries, I've developed some sort of skill in living in various countries that I look at the world as in sync like a transmission with its gears. And while America might be the planetary gear, everything is meshed together. So I use the citizens as kind of like the oil in the transmission. And when I see the oil getting hot, I realize that transmission's going to blow. So I see a very comfortable atmosphere here because we're all living in the same economy. But over the last 12, 14 years, I don't see any significant changes in the people. And that is because of the natural food.
That's
the abundance
great.
of food.
So I have a question back in, we'll say, for instance, in 2008, when there was a large credit crisis in the United States, what type of effect did that have on Dominican Republic?
Once again, everything varies in pockets. You can't go by a nation. Mm-hmm. In the larger cash-driven cities like Santiago and Santo Domingo or San Francisco de Macorís, sure, there was huge changes. Mm-hmm. But gathering it deeper in the countryside, you barely noticed a change. And another comforting figure or statistic for me was about 68% of the population of this country either knows somebody or is related to somebody directly involved in agriculture.
Very good.
Very, very important statistic people do not seem to understand in the Western nations.
So would you say that is the number one thing that you think people need to look to who are concerned about a crash of some sort is sustainable agriculture and fresh water?
Well, humanity thrives on both of those. I've been shot twice in my travels by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The most recent would have been around halfway through the year 2000 in Argentina. And I wasn't involved in anything. I was just visiting some friends there for a few months. And I know what sparks revolutions, and it's not coming from somebody who sits behind a desk and pushes a pen. It's coming from somebody who's been involved with them accidentally, and that is hunger. When people's children start getting hungry, forget the rules. There are no rules, and the bullets are flying from every direction.
Yeah, so following that kind of logic, we're talking about Western nations. I'm sure specifically, well, you're from Canada. You also have the United States. At what point do you think, if hunger is the one thing that changes the equation into some sort of a revolution or something like that, so at what point would that be for the United States, when food stamps stop coming or something like that?
Well, I've kind of learned over the years of experience never to put a date and an event in the same sentence.
Good man.
I can only say from the research that I gather, most of it is not website research. I would say you're going to start noticing, and again, it's only my thoughts, please, I want to make that clear. You're going to start noticing a very sharp increase in violence by the beginning of 2016. And what I would encourage your listeners to possibly consider paying attention to is when the unions are threatened. I know that is not broadcasted much in any type of media, but you have to understand the military and the police are nothing more than big unions. And when their pensions are threatened, all throughout history, they turn on the public.
Yes, absolutely. I completely, I'm in agreement with that. I spent about 4 years in Madrid. I went to university there, and you see a lot of big protests that, just humongous thousands of people, and all of them were coordinated through the unions.
That's when you're going to see, if you take Rome or you go Genghis Khan in China, whenever the military pensions were threatened. Let's face it, there are some wonderful folks who are police officers, but the high percentage of them are not doing it for the love. They're doing it for the pension. And you don't want to witness your whole life carnage and mayhem and abuse of people. And then at the end of it all, find out that your pension isn't going to be there.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is all very interesting stuff. And I agree with you. I want to ask you a little bit more about the Dominican Republic. The pros that you see have to do with a high percentage of the population having a connection to agriculture. And you see that as a very important element for those interested in insulating themselves. Can you share with us any other pros about living in the Dominican Republic?
Sure. I feel several countries, but specifically speaking of this part of the Dominican Republic, is I'll form it with a question to you. How do you take away something that someone never had? You don't. So I can go 2 miles away from my house. First of all, our food chain is under 5 miles from field to shelf. We don't even need gasoline because half the stuff is still brought in by cart and horse. Our fish is less than 1.5 miles from sea to shelf. So you see, if I go 1 mile away from where I am and talk to one of my farm buddies and ask him for a double mocha latte iced cappuccino, he's going to look at me like I'm daft. But if I ask him for a coffee, he's going to go, yo, Lola, Barry quiero un café. Barry wants a coffee. You see, we have things, but we have sustainable things. And that's what's going to make the adjustment much easier to sustain. The question is not will every country be affected, is to what degree will it be affected? That's the question people should be asking. So the Dominican Republic, by nature, is a very family-oriented country. For the last 6 years in a row, they were voted second happiest people on the planet. Costa Rica came in first, but I would encourage you to switch the average net worth of a Costa Rican and Dominican and re-ask the question, and then you'll find out the true happiness. Our economy revolves around the same global economy. This year, we're still up 8.7% GDP over last year, which broke a record. We have all kinds of new infrastructure throughout the island. There's 7 superhighways being constructed. The country is flooded with gold. Barrick Gold has its second most productive mine in the DR. They just opened up another mine between a Australian and Italian company. Excuse me, I forget their name. So we're dripping in natural resources. We're not even tapping into our own oil yet because we have a very good deal with Venezuela. We're trading staples for oil, which is another safety precaution why I like it here. If something breaks out in the Straits of Hormuz, our oil's coming from Venezuela. So I can go on, but it isn't for everybody. Mm-hmm. That's the point I'd like to make it clear. But it's a very simple, sustainable lifestyle if you want more time with your children, if you want more time with your wife. And if you do want to be stressed, you can be stressed in any country. That's self-induced. But it is a much higher quality of life.
So some of the things, when you say it's not for everybody, why don't we just go ahead and throw that on the table? What are the things that people would perceive possibly as cons?
The convenience of having shopping centers or malls at your doorstep. If you like the conveniences of fast food restaurants and things of this nature, the closest one to our region is about 2 hours driving distance. Here you make your life by being with people like the old way and entertaining with people at various houses. We make our own entertainment. If your mind needs to constantly be stimulated by an outside source, like entertainment, a show, sports, it's not going to be a great place for you.
What about electricity, internet?
Internet is really good, and in our region, they're actually about 1.5 years away from finishing underground fiber optics, which is wonderful. We have great internet now, but that's one of the biggest misconceptions is about electric power. If you read the internet is half truth. I mean, some of it's good, some of it's not. They talk about power outages, and I make it clear, yes, twice a day we have a power outage. It works for about 6 hours, then it's off, then it's on, then it's off over a 24-hour basis. But again, if you're asking the correct question, every home here is fitted with inverters and deep cycle battery backups. So the batteries are being charged on city power. When you lose city power for your 6-hour loss, the switchover is so quick you won't even lose your internet connection on wireless. So you have 24-hour power. But it's only being supplied by the city for half of that amount. Are
you saying that that's a planned outage 2 times a day?
Absolutely it is.
Now, why do they do that?
Well, right now, the systems in the rural areas where I'm from, now I make it clear in the large cities, it's 24 hours. But in the country, what I call sustainable regions, the generator systems they're using and what have you, they're still in the stages, I'd say about 65% complete from rerouting them through the backcountries to obtain a 24-hour power. It's in the process, but it's not completed yet. But I want to make it absolutely clear, your house has power 24/7.
Gotcha. Okay, so now where is it exactly that you are in DR, Barry?
I'm in a little town called Cabrera, not Cabarete. That's a tourist town, and I tend to not feel safe in sustainability in any tourist towns. Although tourism is doing excellent on this island, it's still a dollar-driven economy. We are a farm-based economy that does not export. That's another big factor. We do not export in this region. It's self-consumption. To this day, the only thing we're using machinery to harvest is rice. everything is still done manually by hand. And a lot of it is the abundance of it. I would say about 35% of it's still rotting in the field. There's so much of it.
Wow. So with you offer a service, right, where people come down and you kind of show them around. Is that only in the Cabrera region, or do you show people different areas depending on where they might like?
Well, first of all, we interview people. Although I am in the real estate business and I have been for over 35 years, my passion with DR Escapes is to help the informed look at a possible option. And I make it clear, I never even begin to push this as the only country. But what we do is we cram in 5 days together, probably more than a person could see on their own in 6 months. And we're covering about 120 miles of this region. And we're showing the good, the back roads. We're introducing people to locals. We're introducing people to expats that have relocated here. We put them in touch with the website to other people that are in the process. We're big into helping people with immigration. I'm a big believer is a second passport is a get out of jail free card. Again, just check history. So we're very well over the years connected with the right people in the capital for immigration and those sort of things. If it makes sense to them, then we'll progress to the next step. So it's basically to give people a very uncensored, real idea of what it's going to be like to live here.
We definitely want to talk to you about the passport option that you help people with and some of the other things. Right now, we're going to take just a moment, though, and thank one of our sponsors. Today's Borderless podcast is being brought to you by the Condescending Group, your online leader in promoting moral superiority. You know, I had a personal conversation with one of the Condescending Group's founding members, and they're throwing around an idea for this year's Global Condescension Convention in San Francisco. Basically, they believe if you're like them, you need to stand up and be counted, and you'll have your chance when you compete in their condescending competition. This is a completely open event you can get involved in which the sneering and the snooty can show themselves to be more superior, more arrogant, and more condescending than everyone else. They like to think of it like the Hunger Games, except in this case, no one will have to get up off the couch or set down their drink, and no one will actually win since that could lead to self-esteem problems, and who wants that, right? So if you think you're less productive, more patronizing, and can roll your eyes more dramatically than anyone, sign up for the condescending competition at this year's big convention. The Condescending Group, they care more than you. So we're back with Barry Solomon, entrepreneur and co-founder of DR Escapes, DR standing for the Dominican Republic. It refers to his website and his very popular YouTube channel. We're talking about, not only his path to moving from Canada and also to traveling around and landing in the Dominican Republic, why it's such a great choice for people. He lives in Cabrera. We've also talked about some of the things that might be an adjustment for Americans moving here, but he mentioned that he helps people not only with this great tour that you can get involved in, which you see, around 120 miles of the vicinity, so you get really good exposure to what it's like there, but also helping people with second passports. Talk to us about that. How difficult is the process, Barry?
It's actually not too difficult to process. However, not to go in that direction, everything is changing almost monthly or every second month. There's a new rule or a new this or a new that, and that's mostly because of not the Dominican Republic or the hosting country, it's the country you're trying to leave. And obviously, I've always said in my articles, I've made mention more than once, it doesn't matter if you're regular, premium, or diesel, you're going to get burned. So if you have assets, they're trying to make it harder and harder for you to reallocate them. That includes your immigration assets by being able to live and work in more than one country. As a rule, it's not hard at all, though, for Americans or Europeans to still open up a bank account here, which is nice. And that's just one of our oysters if you hear them in the background.
Yeah, so you are authentically in the countryside. We can see that.
Well, yeah, we grow a lot of our own food and eggs and things like this. But as of now, it's quite easy to still get a bank account in the DR, and it is a step process, but we're tied in with who we feel is by far the most top-notch immigration service in the country. And we'll be glad to connect people to them. and they'll have a free conference call and decide if it makes sense for them or not. And if it does, the right path to take, because there's 8 or 9 different avenues you can travel.
Excellent.
8 or 9, wow.
Good to have made this contact. We keep hearing about the Dominican Republic as a good option, and it is good to get confirmation that you're right there on the farm, that rooster. Tune in a little bit later in the podcast when we're going to hear Barry eaten alive by a genuine chupacabra. That should be exciting.
So, about the timeline on the passports, how long does it take for someone who goes there and establishes residency until them actually receiving a passport and citizenship?
Well, there's several different ways to do this. However, I would ask people to be very cautious about instant passports in a year or two. You might want to do a little bit more research in that. And for the average person, it would take for a passport about 7 years. Now, a residency can be done as little as in 6 months. And the residency itself is the actual important feature of it. You see, if you look again, I'm a bit of a history buff, so excuse me for always going back, but if you look at history, you'll find out immigration is the only laws that have always tended to grandfathering throughout history. Meaning that if a government changes the rules, they're always going to say, as of March 15th, 2015, the new rules are. But anybody that can show legitimate proof of starting the process prior to will be allowed to finish. They always have used grandfathering in immigration. Most people are not aware of that.
Yeah, I was involved in setting up one of these programs a couple of years ago, and I believe it was about 4 years, and then all of a sudden they just switched it to 8. But I suppose all the people that got in before still had the shorter time horizon.
I would imagine so. That just seems to be the trend of the tracks on that. And was that this country or another country?
That was Dominican Republic. We were working with, he actually had my last name, the lawyer, Guzman.
Oh yeah, I know them very well. I know the family for over a decade.
Yeah, and another thing so there's 2 different avenues, and one of them is made for large corporations like Pepsi and whatever stuff like this. If you have a company set up there and it has, I believe, $250,000, you can get people through an expedited process. It doesn't matter how many people. It's kind of like an open-ended amount of people that you can get in a much shorter time horizon. So that's kind of an interesting loophole. I don't think anybody's taken advantage of.
I do believe that just recently got changed.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But don't quote me on that. I'm not the expert. Anybody who wants those questions answered, we can always put you in touch with the right people. Like I say, I sure don't know everything. Nobody does. But chances are I can connect people to the right sources that do. And that's where people who have relocated here found us to be absolutely incredible value is when we don't know something, we know the right person to go to find out.
Well, beautiful. Glad to find such an expert in the Dominican Republic there. Let's talk about, I want us, for the balance of the podcast, if we can, to try and really focus on the people who listen to the Borderless podcast, who download it, and imagine a person who has, for whatever reason, has his or her own reasons for wanting to leave the U.S. or Canada or Europe or something, and they would like to figure out a way to go. It's a little bit difficult for them because of the boxes and the borders that we have around ourselves to first picture it and then to actually do it. One of the questions that comes to mind is, well, how expensive is it going to be to move to DR? What about real estate there? Obviously, it varies from the bigger cities to the farmlands. Give us a basic idea of what the real estate market is like in the Dominican Republic, please.
Well, first of all, if a person wants to give it a go or a try, as you referred it to, I would probably suggest you don't look at purchasing unless you want to reallocate part of your portfolio out of your home nation for safety. I would probably stick my toe at the end of the dock in the lake before I jump in to see how cold it is. So what I'd probably do first is relocate and over a 6 to 12 month period, rent a place to find out, is this really good for me?
See, I get that, Barry. Here's the thing. Now, that's what I've done. I've been living here in Mexico for 7 months now, and I'm renting. But when people start formulating their ideas about where they want to go, well, they can always go anywhere and rent, but they want a list of places that they can go where they know when it comes time to buy, it's not going to be out of sight for them. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand. With that point in mind, there are homes here from a nice little simple homes. They're nothing elaborate, but they started around $30,000. And one of the more expensive pieces of property I know here is about $26 million. So anywhere between there. Wow. It is not a poor region. That I want to make that clear, and I want to make that clear not in any country to your viewers. It is. There are pockets that are wonderful and there are pockets that are terrible, just like in the good old Canada and USA and Europe. The thing is it more affordable than the nation they're probably coming from? Without question. But the one-time expenses are going to be reasonably costly, including moving your things, including your first time buying a vehicle, and all of that. And the job market is another thing that varies. The job market in the rural areas is by far better starting your own business. So that's, again, another reason why I suggest a lot of the people that don't have a tremendous amount of disposable income, it by no means is it out of the picture. Because the Western concept is I want to see the view from the top of the staircase, but I haven't even taken the first step yet. And they forget to realize the view is constantly changing with every step you take. So as you get used to the environment you've surrounded yourself in, ideas are going to come to you that will be a sustainable business. So I would say if a person had roughly about $65,000 could buy a place and sustain themselves, a simple little place for a couple of years. And that's really not bad.
Are you talking about in your region, Cabrera, or are you talking about many places in DR?
I'm talking about many of the farm areas. When you go into the big cities like Santo Domingo, it's almost 5 million people. That's like New York, no traffic laws. Right. And real estate is a lot more expensive.
Well, yeah. So what about the other types of expenses? So like monthly, if somebody wanted to go there, a lot of people ask, how much would I need a month to live comfortably? Do you have an idea of what that would be?
I do. Absolutely, but everybody's idea of living comfortably varies, so I guess I'll just use mine. I have two businesses, a real estate business and DR Escapes, which is what I have. So I have an office rental. I have 3 different phones to pay. I'm living on a small home that overlooks the ocean, a wonderful view, including my fuel, food, rents, phones, internet, and everything. I'm living on $2,200 a month, my family.
Wow, that's great.
And that's including, like I say, an office space in Cabrera downtown. That includes a home, fuel, food, taxes, and our health insurance. We have a coverage. I don't even think in America you can get such a strong coverage by a company called Humana, a very famous company. For both of us, our yearly health insurance is running $742 for the both of us per year.
$742 a year?
A year. And we've had people that went in for gallbladder operations or whatever, and their out-of-pocket expense came out to under $100 US. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
And let's talk about the medical care there. How should a person regard the medical care available in DR?
From the folks that have come here, for me, it's just second nature. But as far as if you do your research, you'll find out it's a very popular destination for fly-in surgery. Many of our doctors are from Cuba and India. And if you do your research again there, you'll find Cuban doctors are about as high a quality doctors you're going to find. The same with India, because their standards of education are extremely high when it comes to medicine. Dentistry is very affordable. There's expat dentists, there's local dentists. Both are good. A full set of braces will cost a child about $550 here instead of about $6,000. And yes, we're about an hour away drive, Cabrera, from a major hospital that has its own ICU, its own scanning units, everything that is in place. We've done some YouTubes with American doctors coming on sabbaticals. I would encourage your listeners, if they're interested, to go to those YouTubes, because they were floored. They said, this is every bit as well equipped as any middle to large hospital I've ever worked in America. The only difference is we have time to do our job here. We're not lined up with people out the door. And I have found it to be more than reasonable.
Barry, are you connected? You've been there for many, many years. Are you connected to many expats who live in the larger cities?
Some. I can't say many. My life is out here, but I would say enough for what I need, whether it's car sales or whether it's immigration or all the important things like that. It's easy. That again is up to the individual. It is rather easy to make friends here, but I also would encourage wherever you live in the world, some of the most dangerous sharks swim on the land.
Okay, very good. Now, let's picture a 30-year-old young person who likes the idea of being either in a city or very close to a larger city. They like the excitement of it. They like the feel of it. What can they expect as far as renting a place there? Can you give us an approximate range?
Yeah, you'll be around $800 a month for a decent apartment. The thing that's going to come as a pleasant surprise, and I don't blow smoke up anybody's you-know-what. The fact is, your websites in America, not you, I know you're in Mexico, but American websites have been painting a very false picture. Your English-speaking skills are of tremendous value in these big cities, not the other way around. You can find 1,000 Dominicans to speak Spanish and English at a fraction of a cost, and you just pick the right ones to be your mediators until you get a hang of the language. But your English skills, proper English, is a tremendous asset to have in the big cities.
Barry, one of the factors that people take into consideration when thinking about relocating is weather. Can you share with us what is the weather like in the various areas or regions of the Dominican Republic?
Sure. One of the things I like best about this country, the weather happens to be the reason why we have over 72 different fruits and vegetables growing here. We're a mountainous country, about 19 degrees off the equator, and regions will vary from desert heat to actually freezing puddles in the winter in the higher altitudes, which is amazing. So the diversity is incredible. Where we live in our region, you'll average about 95 in the summer with about a low of about 88. And the wintertime, I would say for 6.5, 7 months, it averages about 71 through about 79 degrees with a little bit of a higher humidity content.
Okay, and a low during the winter?
Lows, you're going to get around 68 in the evening. A tremendous cold spell here would be about 58, but that's rare. But again, Jarabacoa, Costanza, the middle of the country where the altitudes are 8,000, 9,000 feet in some areas, you'll find puddles that freeze during the winter. So it's tremendously diversified, and it's one of the biggest things I love about living in this country. You'll find pine trees. You'll find birch bark trees like Canada, maple trees, and you'll find them next to coconut trees. It's absolutely unbelievable.
We're talking with Barry Solomon on the Borderless podcast. He's an entrepreneur and co-founder of DR Escapes, a website and YouTube channel. He's been traveling for many, many years, living outside of his home country of Canada for many, many years. There came a time when he decided that things were mathematically unsustainable in the Western nations. And he decided to make his life somewhere else. At this point, he chose Dominican Republic as being one of the best and most sustainable areas for he and his family. There's an abundance of natural food, fresh water, natural resources, and a simple, sustainable lifestyle available there. So, Barry, there is something that we like to ask people at the end of the Borderless podcast. What is the best piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring international entrepreneur? Do you have any recommendations for us?
Absolutely. I'll go by my own experience once again, and that is use it as a clue when everybody says it can't be done and you're crazy. Use that as a very strong clue that you're on the right path, because it's always the masses that have been wrong all throughout history. Do not let that waver your decision, and you can always take all the pressure off your shoulders in any move you want to consider by doing it, knowing if you don't like it, you can always return. The country doesn't fall off the globe because you left.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot about Dominican Republic. I definitely like that idea. You have to kind of forge your own path sometimes when you reach a fork and you're not sure which way to go. Sometimes you just want to find your own path. So that's great, and that seems like what you've done there, especially in the specific city that you've chosen. It's kind of funny because here in San Miguel, one of the reasons I chose, I'm not sure about Jonathan, to live here is because of the food issue as well. There's lots of farms and things like that around here too, and I really enjoy that. All the fresh fruits and vegetables is from just around the area is just a great thing to have. So
yes, this interview has been very interesting to me because my operating plan at this point, Barry, is to move in the direction of having a place, buying a place, and having a garden, if not an actual greenhouse. I like the idea of that, and there are a lot of people around here. This seems to be the center of the green movement in Mexico as it relates to produce, raising food, and I like that. So not only am I able to get a lot of good organic produce and even grass-fed meats and things like that, I'm appreciative of that too.
It's a healthier way to be. There's no question. Just look at the disease rate in many of the Western nations, and it's not that look at the issue of obesity and what have you. And it's not that the people are just stuffing themselves; it's that there's no food value to it. And your brain, the same neurosensor that triggers hunger is also the same sensor, coincidentally, that triggers lack of vitamin. So you see, the people are fighting lack of vitamin. They're not fighting hunger. They're replenishing it by eating more, but it's vitamin they're craving, not calorie. And it's a big misconception. But, GMO can also stand for got more options, so that people can look at them that way. There's tremendous opportunity out there. Not that I'm Pollyanna, but it is not a doom and gloom atmosphere because you make your own reality. So you choose how you want to live.
He says it's not what nations will be affected, but to what degree will nations be affected? And so that's a question he encourages you to consider. And one of the opportunities available for you is to check out the Dominican Republic. We encourage you to go to his website, DR Escapes. He's got both a website and a YouTube channel, DR Escapes. His name is Barry Solomon, and he's this week's guest on the Borderless podcast. Thank you so much, Barry, for being with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
What a great guest Barry Solomon was.
Yeah, he's very interesting. He's been doing it for a while. He's down there in a great country. It'd be pretty fun to go visit him sometime.
Yeah, you just get the sense that, he's been away from his home country for so long. He understands, what it's like to do this. He understands the relative pros and cons, and he offers a lot of great services for people who are interested in looking at other options.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like he's got everything covered on his website.
So you heard it, our latest Borderless podcast with Barry Solomon. If you have anything that you'd like to say about this, if you have, any opinions, pro or con about this or something we left out, feel free to be a part of the conversation. We encourage you to go to borderlesspodcast.com, click on the big button right in the middle, which says what? Join now. Join now. And, submit to us your email address that you'd like us to use. We will make you a part of the private Facebook page where the conversation goes on. The other thing that we really appreciate too is if you would, rate and review this podcast. So in the very least, if you could do that, that helps us a lot. If you want to click on subscribe too, that helps us as well. So go over to iTunes, rate it, just click on a star that you think appropriate, review it, write a sentence, a smiley face, whatever you want to do, and click on subscribe.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that.
Join us next time for the next Borderless podcast.
Thanks for joining us for the Borderless podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders.